everybody, and welcome back to the United Stand. On today's 2 p.m. show, a price is set for Marcus Rashford. Manchester United not pushing him to go, but also they have set a fee on what they would consider for Marcus Rashford to leave in the summer. That is coming out from Rob Dawson. We'll talk about that. Do you think it's an acceptable fee? Would you want him to move on? Also, some news coming in from Mason Greenwood. Sir Jim and Ineos, if they don't get the right price for Mason Greenwood, would consider bringing him back, or would bring him back. Is that just mind games? Is it a ploy to get clubs to pay more money? Going to discuss that as well. Also, really interesting stuff. PSG have been lurking around Rashford for quite a long time. The price that is set, that's coming out of this Rob Dawson article from the ESPN, is not as high as what I would have thought it would be. I'm going to straight away get into it with you guys, have a little bit of a debate down below. Also got some news about striker Jonathan David. Manchester United target £30 million. He could be going to another Premier League club if Manchester United don't move quickly. Would you even want him? Let me know down in the comments. Wouldn't be my first choice. But let's get straight into it. I'm going to straight away run a poll and get the interaction going. Would you sell Marcus Rashford for £70 million? That is the price that has been put on Marcus Rashford's head. Honestly, I never thought I'd see the day where Manchester United would even consider selling Marcus Rashford, but the fact this is coming out from a very reliable journalist, and like Mark said on the show last night, obviously I wasn't on that show, but Mark was talking about it when the news came out, nobody is safe apart from the young players at this football club, apart from the Kobbie Mainoo, apart from the Rasmus Højlund, apart from the Alejandro Garnacho. I think Bruno Fernandes is pretty safe as well, but nobody is safe, and Marcus Rashford used to be one of them untouchable players for me. Is he not one of them untouchable players now? Is the club starting to think, hang on a second, is he actually ever going to regain this form? But also, what does Marcus Rashford want to do? Marcus Rashford is on a 375 grand a week contract. He holds a lot of cards in this situation. If he wants to stay at Manchester United and fight for the cause and commit his future to Manchester United, he can do that. But Manchester United are now going to consider offers, but they're not going to push him to leave. Let me bring up straight away exactly what was said and get going in the poll. So first things first, it is that Manchester United are not expecting offers for Marcus Rashford, believing that there is no market for the England striker this summer. United's financial position means they will consider bids north of £70 million for Marcus Rashford if they were received, but they are not expecting any team to match that valuation, and the club is not actively looking to offload the player. So the club isn't going out trying to seek a club for Marcus Rashford. They're not actively pushing him to go. They probably want him to stay and become the Marcus Rashford of last season, but that might not happen. And if they did sell him, it would be pure profit because he's from the academy, he's an academy graduate. It would be pure profit that would go towards a transfer window, and the budget is tight. So for me, Ineos have clearly put out there that, we are going to start being a little bit more ruthless, and it's good to see. I'm going to bring that in with the Mason Greenwood thing as well, as where I think this ruthlessness is coming from. And Marcus Rashford, I feel like under the previous regime, there'd be no pressure, there'd be no news stories coming out how Manchester United might consider selling him. But now there's been news stories put out just in time for the summer window that basically no one is safe apart from the young, promising players at this football club. And if you're a senior player at this football club, you better shape up or we might look to sell you. And for me, there's not much better of a club than Manchester United to go out for a lot of these players. I mean, obviously there's clubs out there that are competing at a higher level than us, but a lot of the players at this football club, if Manchester United did choose to sell them, it's not often it's going to be an upgrade. It's not often it's going to be an upgrade on the club. So it's something for the players to think about and think about whether they want to commit themselves to this cause. But on Marcus Rashford and the price tag being 70 million, you're not going to like this because I feel like the majority of this community probably does want to sell Marcus Rashford. But I think 70 million is too little. And I'll tell you why I think it's too little. The reason I think 70 million is too little of a fee is because obviously this season he doesn't warrant that fee. Like obviously he's not even been nowhere near warranting that fee this season. But Marcus Rashford has history and he has pedigree, and he has history in Champions League competitions, Europa League competitions, in the Premier League, in the Cup. Like he has history. This is a player that got over 30 goals last season. Like he has pedigree. This is a club, Manchester United are a club that spent over £80 million on Anthony, and we spent, how much on Højlund? Like £72 million? Players that didn't really have any pedigree. Like, we're spending that fee, so Marcus Rashford for me is at least 80 million. If we bought Rasmus Højlund for 72 and we bought Anthony for, what was it, like 86 million. Like, Rashford, based on his history, for other clubs, is worth more than 70 million. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm saying that I think we could get more money. What I'm saying is, if Marcus Rashford, you know, isn't committed to the project and he did want to move on, then I would accept 70 million. But if we're in a situation where we are looking to sell Marcus Rashford, I think we should be asking for more than 70 million, if I'm going to be honest. The only thing is the wages. The wages are high and not many clubs can afford that, 375 grand a week. But that's where a certain French club pops up. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Let me see what the poll is going. Would you sell Rashford for 70 million? Yes or no? I'm going to vote. I think we could get more money than that. I honestly think in today's market you could get more money than £70 million. And that's not me being greedy. That is just based off genuine history. The only thing about Rashford that puts him down is the inconsistency, and this season has drove his price right down. But if we're talking about last season Marcus Rashford, people were saying he was worth like over 100 million. I think around 80 million for Marcus Rashford is more of a fair fee, considering what he's got on his CV. Considering that, but get in the comments what you think. I know Ricky would be saying to me he's not even worth 10 million because he doesn't rate him at all, but I'm talking about, like, look at the prices that Manchester United pay, look at the prices that are being paid, you know, in and around the Premier League. Would you sell Rashford for 70 million? I'm going to vote on that one. Wow, 88% of you said you would. And I feel like that's just so many people want him to be sold that they're like, yeah, we'll take any price. If I had the choice whether to move on Marcus Rashford for 70 million, I'd want more money. I'm going to be honest, I would want more money. But I'd definitely be open to selling him, because at the moment it just doesn't seem like it's working. It seems like Marcus Rashford isn't happy. Like, it just seems like that through watching him. And maybe a fresh start is best for both parties. But the one thing I would say is, would you be willing to take a compromise on the fee based on the fact that we're just going to cut our ties with players where it's not working out and we're just going to start again? That could be another thing that comes into the situation. And obviously the money we would gain from him is pure profit. But that's even more of a reason to try and get more money. Like, if you're looking at it logically and you're looking at I mean, what is it? Milan are asking for over 100 million for Leao. Like, we could get more than 70 million for Rashford, in my opinion. I think we could. But that might just be me living in dreamland. A lot of the community don't agree with me, but I'm thinking based on what the current market is, I think we could. Like, Napoli, how much do they want for Osimhen? Like 110 million? Like, we could get at least 80 million for Marcus Rashford, I think. But get in the comments what you think. And this is another thing I wanted to bring up. PSG. I'll get onto PSG in a second. Rob Dawson, in his article, saying that Manchester United aren't expecting any offers. I think for 70 million, PSG would be all over it personally, and I think that's a deal that could actually happen. And I don't think it's us just thinking, oh, well, this could happen. It's not us thinking like career mode vibes. Like, genuinely, PSG have been interested in Marcus Rashford for a long time. They're going to have a lot of money from offloading Kylian Mbappe. That is a profile that is right up their street. That could genuinely get a bit of interest from PSG, and we'll talk about that in a second. Got some super chats in now. Black Wolf says, Beth, I understand your point, but Rashford isn't world class right now. At this point, he's 60. The other players you mentioned was the United tax, nothing more. No, I get it. We overpaid for Anthony. We overpaid for Højlund, like considering the fees that we paid. I get that. But I'm talking about the market. Like, so many people, you know, are bigging up players. Like, for example, I think Leao is a good player. But if he's worth like 100 and odd million, Rashford's worth at least 80. Like, that's the point I'm trying to make. The Irish Zombie says Rashford plays well one season and bad another. 70 million, take it. Tom Edwards says, watch how hard Rashford and other players start trying now. Well, that's the whole point. Because you need to put a bit of pressure on these players. So many players at this club, I'm going to be honest, have had it too easy for too long. At Manchester United, of course, you're always criticised. Of course, there was always scrutiny. But there's been too much of a relaxed atmosphere at that club for a club that's trying to compete to be the best, or should be competing to be the best. People will say you don't know anything. You can say that all you want. I've spoke to people behind the scenes at Manchester United and people that have recently just gone into the club, and they were shocked at how relaxed everything was, considering the position we're in. They were shocked that every single day, you know, the levels weren't at 100, 110%. They were shocked at that. Like, think about what Ronaldo said. This is someone who's one of the most hard-working, well, probably the most hard-working player that's ever been. He couldn't believe it. He's the best, he was, at the time when he came to Manchester United, still one of the best players in the world. He was still the first into the training and the last to leave. Like, he couldn't believe where the standards were at. So I think it's a good thing that Sir Jim and Ineos are putting this out there, and it's clearly done purposefully, because hopefully it will put a message out there to the players: commit and work hard to this project, or go. We're not having 50%, we're not having 60%, we're not having 70%, we're not having 90% effort, we're having 100% or nothing, and you can commit your future elsewhere. And I think that's a really important point for them to make, because it's been way too relaxed for too long. And of course, there's players at that club that they can give 100% effort all day long and they're probably not good enough. And they also need to be moved on as well. There needs to be conversations had with players, there needs to be serious evaluations done, and there needs to be ruthlessness when it comes to selling, because we've not been ruthless for a long time and it's not done us any favours. We hang around like 2, 3, 4 seasons more than we should have. Like, I love Anthony Martial, by the way. I think he's a super talented footballer, and unfortunately injuries have got the better of him. But he should have moved on when he went on loan to Sevilla. He never should have come back to Manchester United. But he's still here now. Like, these are the things that Manchester United do, and it's something that Sir Jim and Ineos massively need to sort out, 100%. David McBride says, Beth, 70 million because of his wages. His wages won't be so. If his wages weren't so high, you could ask for 80 to 90 million. A lot of people saying it wouldn't surprise me if Rashford went on loan. He definitely won't. Definitely won't go on loan. It'd either be a sell or he'd stay. But who's going to buy Marcus Rashford? Because you will have heard Mark say on quite a few shows that, or I've heard him say recently, I've seen the clips on Twitter, that nobody's interested basically, and the reason why, you know, Rashford's going to end up staying is because he's on a big wage and nobody wants to pay the money. And I agree. I think a lot of clubs in and around Europe won't want to be paying that big of a fee and that wage for the form that Rashford's been in this season. Last season, if you said he was up for sale, I think there'd be so many takers. This season, not as many. But what I would say is, there is one club that could be interested, and that is Paris Saint-Germain. But it's just whether Marcus Rashford would want to go, because we heard reports coming out this morning that he's committed to his future at Manchester United. You know, he said that he loves this club and he's a Manchester United fan. If I was a Manchester United fan and I love the club, I wouldn't want to be going off to PSG. I'd want to be staying. You know, he's on a good number here. He knows the club inside out. He's on good wages. He knows everyone there. But that's what comes out. But then when I watch him on the pitch, he just doesn't seem happy. So I don't know if it's just not being conveyed in the right way. There must be something going on that we don't know. I don't know what is going on. Maybe he's just really frustrated with his own form. I don't know what it is, but it's not working at the moment. Paris Saint-Germain, playing in Ligue 1, like, honestly, he would thrive in that league, like the player that he is. Like, he would. PSG, Mbappe is going to go. Mbappe is going to go to Real Madrid this summer. They're looking for a replacement. They've been linked to Victor Osimhen, they've been linked to Leao, they've been linked to these sort of players. If them players are going to cost you over 100 million, Manchester United throwing it out there that you could get Rashford for 70 mil, who you've been chasing for a long time, who we know have had talks with Rashford's agents that came out last summer as well. Could it entice PSG to jump into that race? Because they could get Marcus Rashford for a cheaper fee than what I think you'd ever be able to get Marcus Rashford for. Like I said, I think in Marcus Rashford's heyday, a lot of people say he's worth like 90, 100 million. Like 70 is like probably the cheaper end that you're ever going to get Rashford at, because he's had a really bad spell this season. They'll probably believe that in their league, they can get the best out of him. It's a new start, he can thrive, and they could get him back to the Marcus Rashford he was last year. And that'd be huge for them. Like, I genuinely think Marcus Rashford would do really well at PSG, I really do. He'd be playing in the Champions League. I mean, you'd be winning trophies, you win trophies with PSG. That is something that PSG genuinely could consider. So as much as Rob Dawson said in his article that Man United are not expecting offers for Marcus Rashford, I mean, if they're putting a £70 million price tag on his head, I do know one club that are looking for that sort of player that could afford to pay that and could also afford to pay his wages. And that's PSG, and that's a club that I've been interested in for a long time. So it will be interesting, now that information's been put out there, through a very reliable journalist as well. You know, it's not like tier 3 sources. That information's been put out there that will be listening to offers if they're at £70 million. People at PSG who have always admired Marcus Rashford and have always wanted to bring him to PSG might be thinking, you know what, instead of spending 100 million on or 110 million on Victor Osimhen, why don't we go and get Marcus Rashford? He's a massive brand name. We know his form last season. This league he's probably going to thrive in, like looking at all of his statistics. Why don't we go and do that? And like, why don't we go and make a splash? And they might think to do that. Who knows? It might tempt them in. It's interesting because that information going out there about Marcus Rashford's price, it just kind of gives clubs something to think about, because as poor as Rashford's been this season, deep down there is a lot of talent there that could be unlocked, and maybe he needs a fresh start to unlock that talent, and clubs will be starting to think that. Let's have a look at a couple of your super chats in here. The poll is still an 88% yes. Wow, that is a massive landslide. You have the Black Wolf saying, but Beth, Leao starts for Portugal, Rashford doesn't start for your country. That's completely irrelevant, in my opinion. Obviously, you know, Portugal have brilliant players, so do England. And Rashford's competing with a lot of really good players right now. I know a lot of people don't like to hear it, but for me, I think Jack Grealish is a top quality player, like top quality player. It's super hard to get in front of someone like that. Phil Foden, top quality player, like probably the best English talent we have right now, alongside Jude Bellingham. Like, it's tough. But then people will say, well, even Anthony Gordon looks like he's going to get picked ahead of him. And that's for Rashford to kind of think to himself, like, wow, I need to up my game. Because this season, he's just massively declined from the player he was last season. Not only in terms of his ability, but like, you know, the burst of pace that he had, that bit of aggression he had. Like, do you remember when he came off the bench in that Wolves game last season after he'd been disciplined for being a little bit late to a meeting? And he just charged through like 3 players in the box and smashed it in the back of the net. Like, I just don't see that from Rashford anymore. I don't see that same hunger. I don't see that same aggression. And I don't know what's gone wrong with him. Genuinely, I always say this, I don't know what's gone wrong. Because that statement that came out about, you know, if you doubt me even better, and the whole backstory of his time at Manchester United through the academy, that came from a player that looks like he cares so much about the club, hugely passionate for the club, wants to do everything to get back to his best. But then when you see him play on the pitch, you just don't see that same attitude. Like, it doesn't add up to me. I don't know what's going on. But that's what's coming out now surrounding Marcus Rashford and the price that he set. Wouldn't be surprised if PSG started sniffing around, and I've heard it from a couple of places as well. It'll be interesting. I personally, by the way, if you ask me now, do I think Rashford will be sold in the summer? No. But I think this is a perfect opportunity for Marcus Rashford and Manchester United to sit down and say, look, we have said if a price comes in at around 70 million, we would be open to selling you. These are the reasons why. Do you want to work hard and commit to this project? Or are you open to a move? And do you want to move? Because we need to decide this now. I only want players at Manchester United from now on, and this is what needs to be addressed by Sir Jim and Ineos. I only want players that are 100% committed to the cause and are going to give absolutely everything to the cause. That's what I want. I obviously want talented players as well, 100%. You've got to evaluate that. But I've always said I think Rashford has the talent. It's something else that's gone a bit missing this season. And like I said, the effort levels for me haven't been quite there of what we'd expect from someone like him. It's interesting. Conversation definitely needs to be had, and I think Rashford and his camp will be shocked that that's come out actually about a £70 million price tag, because over the years it's always been absolutely not. There's no, Rashford is Manchester United, Manc born and bred, there's no price, like, off the table. But now reports are coming out that, you know what, there is a price and nobody's off limits. So it definitely one to watch going into the summer. The Irish Zombie says no one will get Rashford back beside him. No one will get Rashford back beside him. Attitude says it. I don't know if that doesn't quite make sense to me. I feel like that means like no one will get Rashford back to his best apart from him. Like, he has to have his attitude in the right place. I don't know. I think a fresh start could be best for both parties, to be honest with you. I really do. Because if it continues how it is, it's just going to go stale. And the fact of the matter is, of course, you know, players aren't always in form. Players aren't always at the best. But Rashford is our highest paid player on 375 grand a week. We cannot have another season with our highest paid player, 375 grand a week, not performing. Like, we just can't do it. And he's not the only one. There's other players that are on big wages that need to step up, or else they'll be questioned as well. But we just can't afford to have that. Because, you know, also, you've got other players looking around thinking, hang on a second, like, I'm playing a lot better, yet I'm on this wage. Hang on a sec. And then it just causes, it needs to be addressed. You can't have your best paid player being constantly underperforming. So something needs to give, and either Rashford commits, he gets his form back, he puts all the effort in. Like I always said, he starts with the effort, gets his form back, he gets back on track, everyone's happy. Or he thinks, you know what, I need a fresh start, and Manchester United part ways and get pure profit. But other things said in this article is Rashford's departure would boost Manchester United's finances because he's an academy graduate. The fee would represent pure profit on the books and help the club stay within profit and sustainability rules. Manchester United do have money to spend in the transfer market this summer, but a source has described the finances as tight. Yeah, tight budget this season. And it's because partly we're not in the Champions League, because that was where some revenue was going to come in, but also we know where we're at with financial fair play. We have caused ourselves massive issues by doing massively overpriced deals over the last God knows how many seasons for players that haven't lived up to what we thought they were going to be. So we need to be very strategic in the summer transfer window, and that's why I also think Mason Greenwood was definitely going to go, despite the message that's coming out. We're going to talk about that in a second. And we have chatting that I wanted to bring up, and it says, one day Mark or Beth will mention this. Marcus Rashford has had 9 seasons at Manchester United, and only 2 of them were top. 7 bang average seasons. Stop going on about last season. So I said, he's an inconsistent player. He's a massive confidence player. He is inconsistent. And I've always said, if you're on 375 grand a week, highest paid player at the club, you've got to be consistent. I mean, look at the highest paid players at the top clubs. They're consistent. And if Rashford wants to be in that category, he has to be consistent. I mean, look at the likes of, I can't even compare Rashford to De Bruyne, but is De Bruyne Manchester City's best paid player? It's either him or Haaland. Just consistent performances. You know, you look at Liverpool, Mo Salah, year after year after year, consistent performances. That's the level you need to aim to be. And last season, blew it out the park. Other seasons, he has had some good seasons, but it kind of flips from hot and cold, and you can't afford to have that. You can't afford to have that. I'm in agreement with you, and that's why Manchester United need to figure it out. But on to the next bit of the article about Mason Greenwood, and it is that Greenwood has scored 10 goals on loan at Getafe this season, but it's unlikely that the Spanish team will be able to fund a permanent transfer. Manchester United are looking for between £30 to £40 million for Mason Greenwood. As with Rashford, United will not accept a significantly reduced fee, and if the club's demands are not met, Greenwood could return to Old Trafford. So basically, the message being put out there is that we need £30 to £40 million for Mason Greenwood, and if we don't get that, he could return to Old Trafford. So we're not desperate to sell him, is the message being put out there. Now, for me, this is pure mind games, and I think it's a really good tactic, and I think, again, this shows the Ineos coming through and the new sort of era taking its toll. The same Ineos that's not getting messed about with the price for Dan Ashworth. We're not going to have our pants pulled down when it comes to transfers either. This is what we want to see. Manchester United have had the pants pulled down for years. For years, we've been laughed at. We've been a laughing stock. Sir Jim and Ineos, it's time to shut that down. I mean, Dan Ashworth is the first point of call as to this ain't happening any longer, and I think it's really good that we've took that stance. And now on transfers, they want to take that stance as well. But I can bet you my bottom dollar, I mean, maybe not that far, but I can bet you absolutely that Mason Greenwood will not be at Manchester United next season. I know a lot of people want him back. I mean, I'll be shocked. I'll be really, really shocked if he's back at Manchester United. I think this is Manchester United's way, and probably Ineos's way, of upping the bid for Mason Greenwood. Because, like I said, if somebody knows that you have to sell something and it has to go, they're not going to pay you a big price for it because they know you're desperate. Whereas if a club wants something from you, you know, if they want something from you and they think, you know what, I need to make them sell this now, like, because they don't have to sell it, you're more likely to get a higher price. It's like on The Apprentice, right? If you guys have watched The Apprentice and they're selling something, like they're selling like at Camden Market or something, or they're out in the town selling like a product. They're either selling like, they're usually selling like mini cheesecakes or some sort of food item. And they start the day and they put the price at like, you know, a tenner per cheesecake. And then it gets down to like the last hour of sales and they all have to go and they're selling them for like £4 or £5 each. Like, if you're desperate to sell something, the price is going to be lower. If you're not desperate, you're going to get a higher price. So I think with Manchester United, they're trying to put the message out there to the clubs that are interested in buying Mason Greenwood. And there are clubs that are interested in making a bid for Greenwood and bringing them to their club. There are clubs out there. There's interest from Serie A. There's interest from La Liga as well. They're trying to put out there that, look, don't bother putting in a stupidly low bid, because we're not actually desperate to sell him and we could keep him if we want to. If you want him, pay the price that we're asking, between 30 and 40 million. And to be honest, like, even the price of 30 to 40 million for Mason Greenwood, like, that is massively below what the talent demands because of obviously all the baggage that comes with it. Like, I understand, I would 100% take between 30 and 40 million for Mason Greenwood. Like, I would take that all day, every day. But if we're looking based purely on the talent that he offers, he's worth more than that. It's because of the baggage. So whichever club does buy him, they're getting a good deal on the talent side of it, but they do have to take the baggage on with it as well, which is why Manchester United have lowered the fee on that, which is understandable. But what Manchester United, I feel like, are trying to do on this is be like, he could come back to Old Trafford, so you better bid what we want, but he's not going to end up coming back, I don't think. And would Greenwood even want to come back? I say this every time. He probably wants a fresh start as well. I think a fresh start is what's needed. I think he definitely will go because another reason in this, not only because of the baggage, but financial fair play. It's pure profit that you can get from Mason Greenwood because he's come through the academy. We need that this summer. 30 to 40 million pounds of pure profit would massively help us out. So I think he will go. I think this is just Manchester United's way of getting a good price for him. And I think it's a good tactic, to be honest with you. Get in the comments down below what you guys think. A lot of people talking about Marcus Rashford. Rennie Optum says, PSG is in transition. They don't want any stars anymore. See how they play at this moment, much better than a few years ago. Well, yeah, obviously Champions League semi-finals I think it's Bayern Munich this week. When do PSG play? Because that's going to be interesting. I'm quite enjoying watching them in the Champions League. They play on Wednesday. Yeah, Bayern Madrid tonight and PSG Dortmund on Wednesday. I'm excited to watch PSG Dortmund, honestly. 1, to watch Jadon Sancho, and 2, to watch PSG. It's going to be crazy, you know, if PSG finally win the Champions League when, you know, it's no more Messi, no more Neymar, and it's kind of, you know, a team that you look at and you think, on paper, it's not of the same quality as what it used to be, but probably works more as a team. But I still think PSG want some stars. They're going to want a star name to replace Kylian Mbappe. I don't think they're going to say, you know what, we're passing up on Mason Greenwood because we don't want a star name like that. No, not Mason Greenwood, sorry. We're passing up on Marcus Rashford because we don't want a star name like that. I don't think that's the case. I think PSG would be all over Marcus Rashford if they had the opportunity to go for him, to be honest with you. And Lawrence Yoma says, as for Greenwood, 30 to 40 million is kind of small, but Greenwood wants a fresh start. It's understandable. I'll respect him. I mean, I think it's just Man United can't afford to take him back with all the baggage, and I think Mason Greenwood would want a fresh start as well. I can't speak for him, but that's just the feeling that I would get around it. And 30 to 40 million compared to the situation that we were in over a year ago when we were trying to get anyone to take him on loan, I think Manchester United have actually ended up doing well. It was handled awfully by Richard Arnold that time when we were going to bring him back, and then we didn't, and then, you know, we ended up getting him a loan to Getafe. That was just a mess. But the loan spell to Getafe has actually worked out really well. And if we can get 30 to 40 million, cut ties, infiltrate our budget with pure profit, happy days. And he won't be coming back to Manchester United. I think it's just mind games, like I was saying. Last but not least, I wanted to talk about this. And it is that it's coming out from, let me get it up, reports in Italy via Sport Witness that Aston Villa are leading the race and are in pole position to sign Canadian Jonathan David from Lille. Obviously, you've seen Jonathan David on Mark's Hotometer. He's someone that's been constantly linked to Manchester United. I've said I don't think we'll buy him, but apparently Aston Villa are leading the race to buy Jonathan David for £30 million. Interesting, because they've already got Ollie Watkins, who is absolutely brilliant, so maybe they just want somebody else. And this is what I try telling people: all the top clubs want at least 2 quality strikers. Aston Villa have Ollie Watkins, but they're still looking to go and get Jonathan David in. They're not just saying, oh no, Jonathan David might ruin Ollie Watkins' game time. No, every top club wants 2 good strikers that can play in every competition. So Aston Villa, I think that'd be a good signing for them. Personally, I don't want Jonathan David at Manchester United. I think he's a decent player, but I'd be looking in a different direction, personally. I just don't know if I'd trust that transfer. With a striker that I'm buying now for Manchester United, I really want to trust that it's going to work. I want it to be, no transfer can ever be completely failure proof, but I want it to be as failure proof as possible. And for me, Jonathan David just has too many risks. So if Aston Villa want to go for Jonathan David, I think that'd actually be a good signing for them. And it's just interesting to see that Aston Villa are kind of branching out in that area. And so many people have said, no, don't go and buy Ivan Toney because of Rasmus Højlund. They're going to buy Jonathan David to compete with Ollie Watkins. Like, you need competition for places and you need depth, especially in that position. It's super, super important. So I think that kind of proves a point there. Got another super chat in. Mark KDL says, would love Greenwood, but can't. I mean, yeah, I don't really want to talk about the Greenwood thing anymore, honestly. I really don't. Frank, in terms of the past that has happened with him, Frank Poacher says, surely we can get near 100 million for Rashford. Literally, like what I was saying before, but the chat was ridiculing me. The chat was ridiculing me for saying that I think Rashford's worth more than 70 million. I mean, look at what players have gone for in the transfer market. Manish Sahal says if Anthony's worth 80 million, then Rashford is definitely worth more. Well, the thing is, right, we know that Anthony isn't worth 80 million. We overpaid massively for that. We should have bought Anthony for around 40, 50 mil max. We overpaid through panic buying, but you still look at that and you think, just look at the market for players at the minute and look at Rashford's pedigree. I know he's not been good this season, but you could get a decent fee for him. And I think PSG would be right in there for 70 million. And we've got Fletcher saying Rashford will be back. He also hasn't had a left-back to support him. Shaw would defo have an influence on how he would play. I absolutely think Luke Shaw is a massive miss to anyone playing on that left-hand side. But I don't think you can use the excuse for Marcus Rashford. The reason he's not performed this season is because he doesn't have Luke Shaw. I think that's a bit of a cop-out. I think it'd make an impact. I think it'd help him. But I don't think it's the be-all and end-all of Rashford's form. I think we need to get out of this excuse mentality and we just need to own it. I think players need to do that. I think the manager, Erik ten Hag, needs to do that. I think the club needs to do that. I think the fans need to do that. We need to stop with this excuse mentality. I can understand the injuries because that has just been relentless. But, you know, if a player's not been good enough this season, own it, work ridiculously hard to be better, and let's keep moving forward. Let's not keep coming up with all of these excuses, because at the end of the day, it's Manchester United and we need to be playing at the top level. But look, everyone, that's the show. Just a quick one for this afternoon with the Rashford price coming out. I just wanted to get all your guys' opinions on it, and it's definitely one to watch going into the transfer window. No one is safe, say Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos. But get all your comments down below. Would you sell Rashford for 70 million? Would you want more money? Or, you know, what are your feelings on Marcus Rashford? Would you want him to commit to Manchester United? And are you hoping to see his form back next season? Get in all your comments. I know it's quite divisive in the chat, but it was 88% of you saying that you would sell him, which is a massive, massive landslide. And that ended on over 5,000 votes in the end. So get in the comments your thoughts. Mark will be back with the 7 p.m. show tonight because he will be doing the watch along in the Champions League. Cannot wait to watch the Champions League later. But look, everyone, have a lovely rest of your Tuesday. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for getting involved with the debate this afternoon. It's really interesting to see different sides of the conversation, and we will see you on the next one.